He thought calling her nobody would be forgotten by lunch. He had no idea it would be remembered for the rest of his life. It was 8:17 on a gray Thursday morning in downtown Baltimore, the kind of morning when the sky looked like wet concrete and the wind pushed coffee cups down the sidewalk like tiny ghosts. People moved fast with collars up, eyes down, each person carrying their own private urgency. Buses sighed at the curb. Traffic lights clicked through their colors. Somewhere in the distance, a siren rose and faded like it belonged to another story. Officer Ryan Cole stood near the entrance of Market Square Plaza with his thumbs hooked into his duty belt, watching the crowd the way some men watched a room just to be sure everyone knew they were there. Tall, polished boots, mirrored sunglasses despite the clouds, jaw set like he had practiced it in the mirror. He liked being seen. He liked the pause people gave him when they noticed the badge on his chest. To Ryan, respect and fear had always looked the same. Across the plaza, a woman stepped carefully through the crosswalk, holding a slim leather folder beneath one arm. She wore a navy coat, low heels, and the kind of calm expression that made rushing people look even more hurried around her. Her name was Monica Hayes. 38 years old. Straight posture. Measured steps. No wasted movement. She looked like someone with somewhere important to be, but not someone trying to prove it. A gust of wind lifted the edges of her coat as she reached the curb. Ryan noticed her immediately, and something in his expression changed. It was small, almost invisible, but familiar to anyone who had ever been judged before a word was spoken. He stepped directly into her path. "Hold up." Monica stopped. Around them, footsteps slowed. Eyes drifted over. She met his stare without challenge, without apology. "Can I help you, officer?" Her voice was steady, low, almost polite enough to disarm him. Ryan smirked. Funny. Usually people ask what they did wrong first. Monica said nothing. She simply waited. That silence irritated him more than anger would have. He circled half a step, glancing at the folder under her arm, then back to her face. "You headed somewhere special dressed like that?" A few people nearby pretended not to listen. A man in a business suit slowed without meaning to. A teenager near the bus bench lifted his phone. Monica's eyes did not move. "I'm headed to work." Ryan laughed through his nose. "Work? Sure." He leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to make people lean in. "You know what your problem is? People like you walk around acting important when you're nobody." The words landed in the cold air and stayed there. A woman across the street stopped mid-step. Someone whispered, "Did he really say that?" Monica looked at Ryan for a long second. No outrage. No trembling voice. No scene. Just a gaze so calm it felt like a mirror held to his face. "Officer," she said softly, "you should be careful with words spoken in public." Ryan spread his arms as if inviting applause. "Or what?" Monica glanced once toward the glass towers across the street, then back to him. "Or they tend to follow people longer than expected." He chuckled. "That's supposed to scare me." He reached for the folder in her arm. "Let's see some ID." Monica did not resist. She simply released the folder into his hand like she had been waiting for him to take it. The teenager on the bench tilted his phone higher. More people slowed now, sensing the strange gravity of the moment. Ryan flipped the folder open with theatrical confidence, expecting panic, excuses, something ordinary. Instead, Monica folded her hands in front of her coat and looked at the city clock above the plaza entrance. 8:19, then she said 5 words that chilled the air more than the wind ever could. "I was hoping you'd do that." Ryan Cole smiled at the words as if Monica had just handed him a joke. He looked around the plaza, feeding on the attention gathering in slow circles around them. Commuters paused near the fountain. A delivery driver stood beside a hand truck and forgot to move. The teenager on the bench kept his phone raised, pretending to text while recording everything. Ryan flipped through the folder in his hands with exaggerated boredom. "Let me guess," he said, loud enough for strangers to hear. Inspirational quotes. Fake business cards. Maybe a complaint form with my name on it. A few uneasy laughs drifted from the edge of the crowd, the kind people make when they do not know whether they are witnessing confidence or a mistake. Monica remained still. Her coat moved gently in the wind, but nothing else about her did. You should read carefully, she said. Ryan pulled out a laminated credential and glanced at it for less than a second before scoffing. Anybody can print one of these. He held it up between two fingers like it was worthless paper. Special Commissioner? That is cute. He tossed the credential back into the folder and stepped closer. You people always think titles make you important. The plaza seemed to shrink around the sentence. A woman in a red scarf turned away in disgust. An older man muttered, "This is not going to end well." Monica's eye shifted briefly to the security camera mounted above the plaza entrance, then back to Ryan. "Officer Cole," she said, reading the nameplate on his chest for the first time, "do you often speak this way while on duty?" Ryan straightened. "Do you often walk around acting like you run the city?" He snapped the folder shut. "I asked for identification. So far all I see is attitude." Monica extended her hand. "Then return my documents." Instead, Ryan pulled out his radio and spoke with performative calm. "Dispatch, I have an uncooperative individual refusing to verify credentials at Market Square Plaza." Heads turned faster now. People knew theater when they saw it. Monica tilted her head slightly, almost with pity. "You are adding false statements to a public record," she said. "That tends to age badly." Ryan laughed. "There you go again. Threats?" "No," Monica replied. Predictions. The city clock above the entrance clicked to 8:21. Across the street, a black SUV rolled to the curb. Then another. Their engines idled with a low hum that cut through the traffic noise like a warning. Ryan noticed them but tried not to show it. "Friends of yours?" he asked. Monica did not answer. Two men in dark coats stepped out of the first vehicle, followed by a woman carrying a tablet and wearing an identification badge on a silver chain. They moved with purpose, not urgency, which was somehow more intimidating. The crowd instinctively parted. Ryan shifted his weight. "Stay where you are," he ordered Monica, though his voice had lost some of its edge. One of the men approached and looked directly at Ryan. "Officer Cole." Ryan lifted his chin. "Who is asking?" The man presented credentials for internal affairs. The air changed instantly. Even the teenager lowered his phone for a second in disbelief. Ryan forced a laugh. "Internal affairs? For what?" The woman with the tablet tapped the screen once. "For this morning, among other things." Ryan glanced at Monica, then back at them. "This is ridiculous." She was interfering with police procedure. Monica finally stepped forward, calm as sunrise. "No, Officer Cole," she said. "I was observing it." She took the folder from his hand, opened it, and removed the same credential he had mocked moments earlier. This time she held it where everyone could see. City of Baltimore. Office of Public Integrity. Special Commissioner Monica Hayes. Appointed by executive order. Effective immediately. Ryan's face lost color. Somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered the words everyone else was thinking. He really did pick the wrong woman. Ryan Cole had spent 17 years believing embarrassment only happened to other people. Yet there he stood in the middle of Market Square Plaza, surrounded by strangers, cameras, and the cold silence that follows a public mistake. His shoulders stayed squared, but the confidence inside them had begun to collapse. He looked from the internal affairs badges to Monica Hayes, then back again as if repeating the scene might change it. "There has to be some misunderstanding," he said, forcing a smile no one accepted. Monica closed her folder with calm precision. "There is," she replied. "You misunderstood who power belongs to. The words were not loud, but they moved through the crowd like wind through leaves. More people had gathered now. Office workers stood on the courthouse steps. A barista in an apron leaned out of a cafe doorway. Even traffic seemed slower around the plaza, as if the city itself wanted to watch. The woman with the tablet stepped beside Ryan. "Officer Cole, please remove your department credentials and place them in my hand." Ryan blinked. "You cannot do that out here." "We already are," she answered. His jaw tightened. "I want my union representative." "You may request one," she said. "After compliance." Ryan glanced toward the street, searching for a familiar patrol unit, a partner, anyone who might restore the old order. None came. For years he had relied on invisible protection, the kind built from favors, silence, and people who looked away. But protection is a fragile thing when witnesses stop looking down. Monica studied him the way a teacher studies a student who ignored every warning. "You were informed," she said. "You were observed. And you continued." Ryan turned sharply toward her. "Observed? You set me up." A ripple moved through the crowd. Monica did not flinch. "No, Officer Cole. We gave you freedom. You chose what to do with it." The sentence landed harder than any accusation could have. The teenager on the bench whispered, "That was cold," while still recording. Ryan slowly unclipped his badge. His hands, once so steady when ordering others around, were no longer steady now. He placed the shield into the waiting hand of Internal Affairs. Then came the radio, the access card, the city-issued identification. Each item sounded small when it changed hands, yet each sound seemed to echo across the plaza. Piece by piece, authority left him. Across the street, a third black SUV pulled up. The rear door opened, and Mayor Evelyn Grant stepped onto the sidewalk in a charcoal coat and low heels, followed by two aides. The crowd parted instantly. Phones rose higher. Ryan's expression turned from fear to disbelief. "The mayor," he muttered. Monica gave the smallest nod. She likes to witness progress personally. Mayor Grant approached with the composed energy of someone who had no need to raise her voice. She greeted Monica first. "Commissioner Hayes." "Madam Mayor." Then she turned to Ryan. "Officer Cole, this city trusted you with a uniform. That trust is not permanent." Ryan swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I can explain." "I hope so," she said. "Investigators have been reviewing prior complaints for 6 months." The plaza went still. Even those who had only stopped for curiosity now understood they were watching something larger than one bad morning. Ryan stared at Monica. 6 months. She met his eyes. Every stop. Every report. Every pattern. His face drained again. He had thought today began at 8:17. Monica knew it had begun half a year earlier. Internal Affairs moved beside him. "Officer Cole, you are relieved of duty pending full review. No handcuffs. No shouting. No scene. Just words. Sometimes that is all it takes to end a career." Ryan looked around the plaza one last time, but no one looked away for him now. Monica stepped aside so he could pass, then spoke quietly enough that only those nearest could hear. "You called me nobody because you never learned how to see people. That blindness cost you everything." Ryan Cole walked across Market Square Plaza without the badge that had once made space for him. 2 investigators followed at a respectful distance, not touching him, not rushing him, simply ensuring the moment reached its proper destination. That was the strange thing about consequences. They did not need to run. They always arrived on time. The crowd parted as he passed. Some people stared openly. Others shook their heads. A few returned to their mornings with the quiet satisfaction of seeing arrogance meet daylight. The teenager on the bench ended his recording and immediately began uploading it. By the time Ryan reached the black SUV waiting at the curb, the first version of the video had already begun its trip across the internet. Monica Hayes remained near the fountain with Mayor Evelyn Grant. Wind rippled the surface of the water and tugged at the hems of coats. Sirens moved somewhere far off. Downtown life resumed in pieces around them, but the plaza still carried the weight of what had happened. "You could have handled this privately," the mayor said. Monica watched Ryan disappear into the vehicle. "He handled it publicly," she replied. "I simply allowed the public to see it." Mayor Grant nodded once. She appreciated answers that did not waste words. "How many more?" she asked. Monica opened the leather folder and handed over a summary sheet. 12 officers under active review. For supervisors who buried complaints. 2 administrators who changed reports after the fact. The mayor scanned the page, then exhaled slowly. And all of this began with routine traffic stops. "No," Monica said. "It began with people believing no one important was watching." Across town, inside the 7th precinct, televisions mounted near the break room switched from morning news to breaking coverage. Grainy cell phone footage showed Ryan in the plaza, his voice raised, his posture smug, then the sudden arrival of internal affairs. Officers who had laughed with him now stood silent with paper cups in their hands. Captain Daniel Brooks entered the room, saw the screen, and stopped cold. "Turn it up." The anchor spoke in measured tones about city oversight, public integrity reform, and a suspended officer tied to prior complaints. Brooks did not blink. He knew Ryan's file. He also knew how many times he had chosen convenience over courage. In another office, dispatchers exchanged glances over their headsets. A clerk whispered, "So it was true." Another answered, "It was worse than true." Back at the plaza, Monica signed 2 documents on the hood of a city sedan while aides moved around her with practiced speed. She did not celebrate. She had seen too many systems mistake one headline for healing. The mayor studied her face. "You do not look satisfied." Monica capped the pen. "One person losing power is not justice. It is paperwork." Mayor Grant almost smiled. "You are going to make a lot of people uncomfortable." "Then I am on schedule." A notification tone sounded from an aide's phone. Then another. Then several more. The video was spreading faster now. Clips with captions. Slow motion edits. Freeze frames of Ryan holding her credentials. Comment sections filling with anger, relief, stories from strangers who recognized the pattern long before they knew his name. The aide turned the screen toward them. 10,000 views in 6 minutes. Monica barely glanced at it. "Attention is temporary," she said. "Records are permanent." Meanwhile, inside the SUV, Ryan sat rigidly with both hands clasped so tightly his knuckles blanched. He could hear muffled radio chatter from the front seat. He could feel the phone vibrating in his pocket again and again. Friends. Reporters. Numbers he did not know. He did not answer any of them. For the first time in years, silence felt louder than authority ever had. The vehicle stopped at headquarters. One investigator opened the door. "This way, Officer Cole." Ryan hesitated before stepping out. The building he had entered proudly for nearly 2 decades looked different now. Same stone steps. Same glass doors. Same flag above the entrance. But buildings change when they stop belonging to you. As he climbed the stairs, Monica's final words from the plaza replayed in his mind like something carved into metal. "You never learned how to see people." Inside the lobby, every eye turned toward him. None of them saluted. Headquarters had never sounded so quiet. The marble lobby of the Baltimore Police Department usually carried the rhythm of ringing phones, hurried shoes, clipped greetings, and the low confidence of people who believed the building would always protect them. But that morning, silence moved faster than noise. Ryan Cole stepped through the glass doors with 2 investigators behind him and felt every conversation stop before it started. Officers at the security desk looked down at monitors they were no longer reading. A records clerk froze with a stack of folders in her hands. Someone near the elevators whispered his name, then thought better of saying anything else. Ryan kept walking as if posture alone could still save him. It could not. Captain Daniel Brooks waited outside conference room B, jacket off, sleeves rolled, face drawn tight with the kind of anger reserved for problems that should have been prevented months ago. He did not greet Ryan. He simply opened the door and motioned inside. The room was plain and cold. Long table. Grey walls. Pitcher of water no one wanted. A city flag in one corner. The kind of room where careers were reduced to statements and signatures. Ryan sat first. Brooks remained standing. "Tell me," the captain said, voice low and controlled, "that the video is edited." Ryan looked up sharply. "She provoked me." Brooks stared at him as if the sentence itself offended the air. "That is what you brought with you today? That excuse?" Ryan leaned forward. "You do not understand. She came there looking for a scene." "No," Brooks said. "She came there looking for truth. You volunteered to be evidence." The investigators placed a tablet on the table. One tap brought up the footage from the plaza. Ryan watched himself in high-definition confidence. The smirk. The posture. The careless hand holding Monica Hayes's credentials. Then the moment his face changed when internal affairs arrived. It was astonishing how quickly arrogance looked foolish when replayed. Ryan looked away. "Turn that off." "No," Brooks replied. "You have made citizens watch themselves be dismissed for years. Today you watch yourself." Another tap opened archived complaints. Names. Dates. Patterns. Language repeated across time like a stain that had never been cleaned. Disrespectful conduct. Selective enforcement. Unnecessary escalation. Missing body camera footage. Reports inconsistent with witness statements. Ryan's breathing changed. Most of those were cleared. Monica Hayes's voice came from the doorway before anyone saw her enter. Cleared is not the same as false. Every person in the room turned. She stepped inside with her folder under one arm and the same calm expression she had worn in the plaza. No triumph. No anger. Just focus sharpened by patience. Ryan rose halfway from his chair, then sat again when no one else moved. "You should not be in here," he said. Monica took the seat across from him. "This review exists because I am in here." Brooks slid the complaint file toward her. Commissioner Hayes requested all unresolved cases tied to Officer Cole. Ryan looked between them. "You planned this." Monica opened the file. "We documented this." She read one page, then another. Mrs. Elena Porter. 72 years old. Wrongfully detained outside her own apartment building. Another page. Mr. Jamal Reeves. Search conducted without cause. No citation issued. Another page. Student driver, 19, pulled over 3 times in 11 days. Ryan slammed a palm on the table. Those were calls. Split-second decisions. Monica did not blink. No. They were habits. The room held still around the word. Habits. Harder to defend than mistakes. Brooks finally sat down, looking older than he had that morning. Internal Affairs recommends immediate termination review and referral for civil rights investigation. Ryan stared at him. "After everything I did for this department." Brooks answered with a tired honesty that surprised even himself. "That is the problem, Ryan. You thought service erased character." Ryan's phone buzzed again on the table. Then again. Then again. News alerts. Messages. Missed calls. He flipped it over, but vibration still rattled through the wood like a warning drum. Monica stood, gathering the file. "This city gave you authority," she said. "You treated it like ownership." She moved toward the door, then paused without turning back. And ownership is the fastest way to lose what was only borrowed. By noon, the story had crossed state lines. In coffee shops, airport gates, barber chairs, office break rooms, and living rooms with televisions humming in the background, people watched the same 38 seconds again and again. Officer Ryan Cole standing tall in Market Square Plaza. The careless grin. The dismissive tone. The folder in his hand. Then the arrival of internal affairs, the shift in his face, the sudden collapse of certainty. Some viewers watched for outrage. Others watched for recognition. Many watched because they had lived a version of it themselves. At City Hall, phones rang so steadily that staff members stopped saying hello and simply asked, "Which line?" Mayor Evelyn Grant stood in a conference room overlooking downtown, reading statements drafted by 3 different advisors and liking none of them. She set the papers aside when Monica Hayes entered. "The city wants blood," the mayor said. Monica placed a second folder on the table. "The city wants honesty. People just confuse the two when they have waited too long." The mayor opened the folder. Inside were summaries of prior complaints tied not only to Ryan, but to patterns surrounding him. Supervisors who downgraded reports. Missing camera logs. Witness interviews never completed. Corrective training marked finished but never attended. "How deep does this go?" the mayor asked. Monica looked out the window toward the streets below. "Deep enough that one suspension will feel satisfying and solve nothing." Across town, Ryan sat alone in an administrative holding office with no badge, no radio, and no access card. The room had beige walls, a metal desk, and a clock whose ticking now sounded personal. His phone rested face down beside him, still vibrating every few minutes. He finally turned it over. 32 missed calls. Messages from old friends asking what happened. Messages from reporters asking for comment. One short text from his brother, "Tell me this is not real." Ryan typed 3 responses and deleted all of them. For years he had mastered language when speaking downward. He discovered he had none when speaking from below. Captain Daniel Brooks entered carrying a cardboard box. Ryan stared at it. "What is that?" Brooks set it on the desk. "Your locker contents. Collected as procedure." Ryan laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "Procedure. Now you care about procedure." Brooks met his eyes. "I should have cared earlier." That answer hung in the room longer than either man expected. Ryan looked away first. "You are throwing me to the wolves." Brooks shook his head slowly. "No, Ryan. I am stepping out of the way of what you built." He left the box and walked out. Inside were ordinary things made strange by timing. Spare pens. A framed photo from a charity softball game. Sunglasses. A challenge coin. A coffee mug that read "Respect the badge." Ryan turned the mug in his hands until he could not bear reading it anymore. Meanwhile, Monica stood before a row of cameras in the City Hall briefing room. Reporters filled every seat and lined the walls 2 deep. She did not smile for them. "Today is not a victory lap," she said. "It is an audit." Pens moved quickly. Lenses tightened. One public incident drew attention because cameras were present. Many private incidents never received that privilege. Our responsibility is not to react to one moment. It is to examine all of them. A reporter called out, "Was Officer Cole targeted?" Monica answered without pause. "He was observed." "There is a difference." Another voice asked, "Will more officers be suspended?" Monica folded her hands. "If misconduct exists, titles will not protect it." In homes across the city, people leaned closer to their screens. In precinct hallways, officers lowered their volume to hear every word. In the holding office, Ryan watched the press conference on a muted television mounted high in the corner. He did not need sound to understand what was happening. Monica's calm was louder than any shouting could have been. As cameras flashed, she delivered one final sentence that reached every room where excuses had ever lived. "Trust is not lost in one day," she said. "It is lost in pieces. Today, we simply started counting them." The next morning, rain tapped softly against the windows of Baltimore City Hall, the kind of steady rain that made streets shine and voices lower themselves indoors. By 7:30, a line had already formed outside the public hearing chamber. Teachers in work coats. Retirees with folders tucked under their arms. Students holding phones. Business owners who had never attended a city meeting in their lives. They were not there for politics. They were there for gravity. When a system finally moves, people come to see if it is real. Inside, Monica Hayes reviewed notes at the witness table while aides arranged stacks of documents beside her. She wore the same calm expression that had unsettled Ryan Cole more than anger ever could. Mayor Evelyn Grant entered quietly through a side door and took her seat at the front dais. Cameras lined the back wall. Red recording lights blinked like patient eyes. Across town, Ryan sat in his apartment with the television on and the volume low. For 17 years he had begun mornings with a pressed uniform, polished shoes, and the comforting ritual of being expected somewhere. Today he sat in a grey sweatshirt, unshaven, coffee gone cold on the table beside him. His badge drawer stood open in the kitchen, empty except for dust outlines where things used to be. He kept looking at it anyway. On screen. The hearing chamber filled seat by seat. Captain Daniel Brooks walked in and sat near the rear wall, no longer hiding behind office doors or delayed memos. He looked like a man who had slept very little and learned too much. The clerk called the meeting to order. Mayor Grant spoke first. "This city cannot ask for trust while ignoring the cost of losing it." Then she turned to Monica. "Commissioner Hayes, proceed." Monica stood. The room quieted in layers. "Yesterday, one recorded interaction forced public attention," she began. "Today, I am submitting evidence that many unrecorded interactions deserve equal attention." She lifted the first binder. Complaint files previously marked resolved without full review. The second. Training certification signed but not completed. The third. Disciplinary recommendations altered after supervisory meetings. A murmur rolled through the chamber. Pens moved quickly. Phones rose higher. Ryan leaned toward the television as if proximity could soften the words. It did not. One by one, residents approached the microphone during public comment. An elderly woman described being spoken to like a trespasser outside her own building. A college student described traffic stops that happened so often he planned extra time for them on his commute. A shop owner described calling for help and being treated like the suspect instead. None of them shouted. None of them needed to. Pain spoken plainly carries its own authority. Ryan muted the television, then unmuted it 10 seconds later because silence was worse. Captain Brooks eventually approached the microphone. The room stiffened. "I signed off on reports I should have questioned," he said. "I valued smooth operations over hard truths. For that, I apologize to this city." No one applauded. Accountability was not entertainment. It was overdue rent. Monica watched him for a moment, then nodded once. The smallest gesture in the room somehow became the loudest. Mayor Grant called for emergency reform measures, independent review expansion, body camera audit compliance, complaint reopening procedures, supervisory retraining, quarterly public transparency reports. Each item passed unanimously. Outside the chamber, rain continued washing the courthouse steps and city sidewalks alike. Inside his apartment, Ryan stared at the screen where names, votes, and policy language replaced the kind of power he understood. He reached for his phone and opened old messages full of praise, jokes, invitations, easy loyalty. Many contacts had already blocked him. Others had gone silent. For the first time, he saw what Monica had seen from the beginning. Fear had stood near him for years and he had mistaken it for respect. Back in the chamber, a final resident approached the microphone, a young man in a grocery store apron still wearing his name tag. I was in the plaza yesterday, he said. I watched everything happen. I just want to say something simple. He looked directly at Ryan through the nearest camera lens without knowing Ryan was watching. When people tell you who they are while they have power, believe them. But when they lose it, watch who they become. Ryan lowered his eyes. The rain kept falling. 3 days later, the city moved differently. Not slower, not faster, but more aware of itself. At bus stops and lunch counters, people no longer asked whether the plaza video had happened. They asked what would happen next. News trucks still parked outside headquarters. Commentators still replayed the footage. But the louder story now lived in smaller places, reopened complaint lines, supervisors checking reports twice, officers suddenly choosing their words with unusual care. Fear had changed addresses. Monica Hayes stood in the Office of Public Integrity on the 12th floor of City Hall, where boxes of archived files lined the walls like overdue confessions. Rain had passed. Sunlight stretched across the harbor and reflected in the windows behind her desk. She was reading case summaries when an aide stepped in. "You have a walk-in request," he said. "No appointment." Monica did not look up. "Name?" The aide hesitated. "Ryan Cole." The room seemed to pause around the answer. Monica closed the file in front of her and considered the silence before speaking. 5 minutes, she said. No cameras. No audience. Ryan entered looking like a man who had been introduced to mirrors against his will. Gone were the polished boots and tailored posture. He wore a plain jacket, dark jeans, and the tiredness of someone who had not been sleeping honestly. He stood until Monica gestured toward the chair across from her desk. "Sit." He obeyed. The old version of him would have resented the word. This version seemed relieved by direction. For several seconds he said nothing. The city hummed 12 floors below them. Finally he cleared his throat. "I came to ask what happens now." Monica folded her hands. "To the city or to you?" Ryan lowered his eyes. "To me." She nodded once. "Then this may be the first useful question you have asked in years." He accepted the hit without protest. "I lost my job." "You lost authority," Monica corrected. "Work is still available to people willing to earn it." Ryan looked around the office at the stacks of files. "You really had all of this waiting?" "No," she said. "The city had it waiting. Most of it was ignored." He rubbed his palms together. "I was not the only one." "True," Monica said. "But you were fully yourself." The sentence settled between them like a weight no defense could lift. Ryan stared out the window at the harbor cranes in the distance. "Everyone thinks I am a monster now." Monica's voice remained level. "Many people thought they were invisible when you spoke to them. Reputation can feel cruel when it finally becomes public." He swallowed hard. "So that is it? I just disappear." Monica leaned back slightly. "That depends. Some people disappear because they cannot live without status. Others become useful for the first time." Ryan frowned. "Useful how?" She opened a drawer, removed a single sheet of paper, and slid it across the desk. "Community Accountability Program. Mandatory Service Placements. Youth Mentoring under Supervision. Bias Education. Public Listening Forums." Ryan read it twice. "You want me doing volunteer work? I want you hearing stories without a badge interrupting them." He almost laughed, then realized she was serious. "Why would you help me?" Monica's eyes sharpened. "Do not confuse consequence with hatred. I do not need your ruin. I need your honesty." Down below, church bells marked the hour. Ryan set the paper down carefully. "And if I refuse?" Monica stood, signaling the meeting was ending. "Then you will spend the rest of your life telling yourself the world ended in a plaza." She walked to the window beside him. Traffic moved in thin bright lines under the afternoon sun. People crossed streets, carried groceries, argued into phones, laughed on corners, lived on schedule with or without either of them. But if you accept, she continued, you may learn something harder. Ryan looked up. What is that? Monica faced him fully for the first time since he entered. The world did not end when you lost power. It only ended the version where you abused it. Ryan picked up the paper with both hands. They were steadier now than they had been the day he surrendered his badge. 6 weeks later, Market Square Plaza looked exactly the same and nothing like it had before. The fountain still sent silver arcs into the air. Buses still sighed at the curb. Office workers still crossed the brick paths with coffee in hand and eyes on the clock. But places remember. They hold the shape of moments long after crowds disappear. On a clear Friday morning, Monica Hayes stood near the same city clock where she had once checked the time before everything changed. She wore a light tan coat now, a folder tucked under one arm, sunlight catching the edge of her glasses. The plaza no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like evidence that public memory could be useful. Across the square, a group of teenagers in volunteer shirts unloaded folding tables for a neighborhood job fair sponsored by the Community Accountability Program. Resume coaches were setting up. Local businesses arranged banners. A church choir rehearsed softly near the steps. The city had chosen to turn an old stage into something productive. Ryan Cole carried 2 boxes of bottled water from a delivery van toward the tables. He moved slower than before, but steadier. No badge. No audience. Just work. Sweat darkened the collar of his plain blue shirt. When one of the teenagers thanked him, he nodded awkwardly as if still learning how respect sounded when it was not demanded. He noticed Monica only when he set the boxes down and straightened. For a brief second, old embarrassment crossed his face. Then it passed. He walked over. Commissioner Hayes. Monica glanced at the tables. You are early. Trying something new, he said. Showing up before I am forced to. The line surprised them both. She almost smiled. Almost. Nearby, a young man adjusted a sign that read Second Chances Job Fair. Ryan followed her gaze. I have been here every week, he said. Setting up chairs, cleaning up after, listening more than talking. And? Monica asked. Ryan took a breath. Turns out people tell you a lot when they know you cannot punish them. Monica nodded slowly. That is called trust beginning to breathe again. The choir's voices rose gently behind them. Traffic rolled past in warm waves of sound. A little girl chased a balloon near the fountain while her mother laughed and called after her. Ordinary life moved all around the place where pride had once tried to own the morning. Ryan looked toward the city clock. I used to think losing everything happened in one moment. Did it? Monica asked. He shook his head. No. It happened piece by piece long before anyone filmed it. I just did not notice. Monica studied him carefully. Regret can be performed. So can humility. But time usually exposes the difference. And now, she asked. Ryan glanced at the volunteers, the tables, the people arriving with resumes folded in careful hands. Now I think rebuilding is also piece by piece. Monica let the answer settle. Better. Mayor Evelyn Grant arrived with 2 aides and greeted organizers along the path. Cameras followed at a respectful distance, but there was no frenzy this time. No scandal. No collapse. Just a city preferring progress to spectacle. She stopped beside Monica and Ryan. Looks different here now, the mayor said. That is because people are doing different things here now, Monica replied. The mayor shook Ryan's hand once. Firm, brief, neutral. Keep earning introductions, she said, then moved on. A volunteer called for extra hands near the registration tables. Ryan started toward them, then turned back. There is something I never said. Monica waited. I was wrong. The plaza breeze moved between them. She did not rescue him from the discomfort of the sentence. Yes, she said at last. You were. He accepted it with a small nod and jogged off to help lift another stack of boxes. Monica watched him go, then looked up at the city clock. Same place. Same hands. Different hour. Around her, people signed forms, offered handshakes, unfolded hope from folders, and stepped toward futures that had not existed a few weeks earlier. Sometimes justice does not arrive like thunder. Sometimes it arrives quietly, asks people to work, and stays long after cameras leave. Monica turned to join the crowd, and the plaza kept moving beneath a bright and honest sky.